I couldn't really get high on dope anymore. That was my drug of choice. And then I took up smoking crack, and I didn't even like cocaine. But, when you're an addict at that level, it's like the monkeys in the space program. You just keep pushing the button, and you don't care whether you get a shock or a banana pellet. You just don't care as long as it changes.
Steve Earle, musician, activist, author, father.
Father more than anything else most of the time now, because I'm still. I have a 14-year-old. He was born when I was 55, and I'm some point in my day reminded daily why you're not supposed to have a kid when you're 55.
What should be the cap on how old you are?
I'm going to be 70 my next birthday, and it's it's like one of those things. John Henry has autism, so there's some things that I haven't done with him that I would have done. I saw about he didn't. I did the baseball for kids that with disabilities, and he didn't really get into it. And I was never I'm a baseball fan, but I was never a baseball player. I was never a jock. And but if things had been, if you do want to throw a baseball with your kid, try to keep up with them physically. Yeah, cut off sometime before 55 anyway. So
50 maybe max.
Because you're going to be, well into your 60s by the time you have to start, having a catch. So.
Oh God, that just is exhausting even to consider. Yeah. You're a hero on that. Yeah. Listen, I owe you a huge debt of gratitude, and I need to thank you. Around February of this year, I was listening to Wait, Don't Tell Me, and you were on, and you launched into a story about yoga and sobriety.
Right.
Now, we had met about 12, 13 years back on my other show, Talk Stoop.
Right.
And I got sober between then and now, and I didn't really know you could talk about sobriety on the air. And
There's traditions. So it's not really rules. There are traditions about it in 12-step programs, and I'm a 12-step guy. But, there have been people that think that I violated those traditions. I don't think I have. You have to define it within your community, within your home group. My idea about what's okay and what's not came from my first sponsor and one subsequent sponsor, and because I moved when I had 10 years to New York, and I've had the same home group since had the same home group the whole time I was in Tennessee. Had the same home group since I moved here.
You're a creature of habit.
Yeah, it's one of those things. It's all 12. My grandfather. The reason I'm a New York Yankees fan is because my grandfather mustered out of the Army here at the end of World War II, and he had no intention of going back to Texas, but his stepfather died, and he was drug kicking and screaming back to Jacksonville, Texas to run the family hardware store. He was a Yankees fan, and he had gotten sober here in New York City when he was relatively young, and this is 1945, so he knew Bill W. He knew Dr. Bob.
Wow.
Bill W. was on 13th Street at the time, and a lot of the history of this program comes from here. I'm in NA in the sense that my home group is, but I've never been. There's a little bit of weirdness between the fellowships sometimes. There's a reason for it in New York. There's a history. The original 12-step program was not very hospitable to addicts to things other than alcohol when they tried to use 12 steps to get clean in New York City. It was a direct result of the Rockefeller laws, which were laws that were brought in. Basically, one of them was that you could close an establishment if you could prove 3 people who were addicts were gathering there. In other words, they were trying to stop bars from being places where people sold narcotics. And so the AA people at the time interpreted as meaning that the police could shut them down for having a meeting if they let heroin addicts in, which is bullshit. But everybody's got to think they're better than somebody. And
but I want to be better than somebody.
So in New York especially, I didn't run into this in Tennessee or other places, but in New York especially, there is a thing in NA groups about AA because they were discriminated against. I don't go there. I go to whatever kind of A I can get in, and I don't, the steps work. And I hope, I remember in the basic text, they call it Narcotics Anonymous, there was a line on the title page that acknowledging their debt to the original members of Alcoholics Anonymous. The year that I got clean, see, that's talking. You can't say sober and NA, and I said,
oh yeah, that's a thing.
Yeah, it's a thing, and I don't. I just
why
when I go to AA, it's because they want to have their own terminology, and they want to believe that it's one disease for all the drugs. That's true.
Yeah.
And alcohol's a drug. I need to be able to walk into a meeting anywhere in the world, whatever is at the front of the two letters. And I went to a meeting in Germany that I didn't understand a single word that was said. And it kept me from using that day. And it was very early in my recovery. And somebody made me aware that night afterwards. Somebody that did speak English, it was in that, noticed me and flagged me down. The Serenity Prayer was written in German.
Get out of here.
It was written by a Lutheran minister, and it's not the entire prayer, but that's where it comes from. It originally was written in German, so I learned that night. And
that's wild.
I grew up with the steps in the Serenity Prayer on the wall, so I knew this would work, and I stayed as far away from it as possible because I had evidence in my life that it would work, and I wasn't done yet.
You weren't done yet. Okay, so when were you done?
September 13th, 1994.
What happened?
Got locked up. I didn't do it voluntarily, didn't do it willingly. Woke up I turned myself in on a bench warrant that had been in existence for about 6 months. And I'd been hiding because I'd been going to get my methadone out of town. And because they didn't do, Georgia did a higher dose of methadone than Tennessee did, is basically what it amounted to. And I got tired of running, and my lawyer talked me into turning myself in. Turned out he was in trouble with the same judge that was after me, so he lied to me and told me that I would just make bond and get out. So I went and turned myself in, and he turned around, walked out, and there I was. And I spent that night in jail, and I woke up the next day on September the 13th, and pretty sick and going to get sicker because I was addicted to methadone and cocaine. At the end, excuse me. At the end, I couldn't really get high on dope anymore. That was my drug of choice. When I drank like an alcoholic. Trust me. But it's considered to be an inefficient drug, so I gave up on it after a while. But I couldn't really get high anymore, and so I went on a methadone program just so I wouldn't get sick. But still, I was on 120 milligrams of methadone a day. It's as high a dose as they recommend for anybody. And then I took up smoking crack, and I didn't even like cocaine. It was one of those deals. I like speedballs, but other than any other form, I didn't really like coke. And but when you're an addict at that level, it's like the monkeys in the space program. You just keep pushing the button, and you don't care whether you get a shock or a banana pellet. You just don't care as long as it changes.
Okay, so change. So I can't imagine that's the first compromised position you woke up in. I can't imagine that's the sickest you've ever been. So what was it about September 13th that you were like, okay, this is fucking it?
It was a very slow burn for me. I stayed there because I had to, because I was locked up. But then I was so sick physically. The judge was trying to prove that he wouldn't be lenient on me because I was semi-famous and pretty well known in Tennessee. I was there probably on the fourth or fifth day. I was so sick, and my blood pressure had gotten really high, which is that's how they diagnose heroin withdrawals, your blood pressure being elevated. So the sheriff just called the judge and raised hell because she didn't want me dying in her jail.
Yeah.
So they came and got me, and they had a place called Buffalo Valley, and there was money then that they could help people get into treatment that wanted to. This was in the 90s. I had some money still, so I could pay for it myself, and my lawyer pitched that idea. And so I was allowed to be furloughed out of that jail into the Davidson County Jail into a drug treatment center called Buffalo Valley in Hohenwald, Tennessee. Now, Buffalo Valley is very bare bones. I could have gone to the damn Betty Ford Center if I'd done this voluntarily, and I didn't. And the food was terrible because we cooked it. It was like it was pretty, 4 people to a room. It was a barracks. I didn't leave. I for some reason figured out, well, I feel a bit better and maybe I can get through this. And I started taking the meetings seriously. And a guy came in that spoke at our meeting that came in from Nashville. And he kind of, as they say, had something that I felt like I wanted. And that guy the first meeting I walked into in the free world when I finally got out, that guy was sitting in that meeting, and he became my first sponsor. He was my sponsor for the first 10 years.
Amazing.
Yeah.
So you mentioned that your fame had something to do with the way the judge sentenced you. What did it have to do with your using? If you had been less famous, would people have maybe enabled you less? Would you have wanted to use less? Are you even able to make that determination?
If I'd been less famous, I don't think he would have, been as hard on me as he would, and actually, broken the law sentencing me, because he just didn't know. He was a new judge.
But
I was a new inmate. I hadn't been locked up very much. Most of the people I knew that used as long as I did, I started using when I was 11 years old. So I started using hard drugs when I was 13. My main drug of choice in high school was LSD, and my hobby was turning cowboys onto LSD. That was a lot of fun.
That sounds like a lot of fun.
It was
that or cow tipping,
and we're not talking about club drugs. We're talking about lysergic acid diethylamide 25. It's a whole.
Where are you getting that as a little kid?
Deal. So I'm just that old, That's what it boils down to. So, yeah, it doesn't exist anymore.
But do you feel like people enabled you more because you were famous? Like that nobody stepped in and said, "Steve, you got to cut this shit out."
People did do that, but people did enable me, but you can't, that's people enable people that are famous in other areas that don't have anything to do with drugs.
Tell me.
Behavior that's bad, is tolerated when you're famous. I was never that famous, but I was famous enough in a certain circle of people. I had things I could get away with that, I just that I wouldn't have been able to get away with otherwise.
For better or for worse?
Mostly for worse. I'm thinking in the long run, at least for somebody like me with the disease that I have. Somebody who was a little healthier, maybe it's okay.
So you were already well famous by the time you got sober.
Yeah.
Were you nervous about what would happen to your music, to your art, if you weren't under the influence?
I don't think I don't know. I hadn't written anything in four and a half years. And I was
really
listening
busy
to
doing
music.
drugs.
I listened to whatever the people that I was buying drugs and hanging out with listened to more than I didn't have a guitar. They were all gone. I was like, like Leon Spinks, no front teeth, no driver's license, and and damn sure didn't have any cocaine.
That was your damn bottom.
It was, I kind of just lived everything. I reached that point where everything was about waking up in the morning and trying to find enough of two drugs. I had two habits, and they were both vicious, and it was two different parts of town in Nashville. It was like,
you had to commute.
Go get dope first, because otherwise I'd be physically ill, and then chase the crack thing around all day, and then the next day the whole thing started over again. My front teeth were gone, and I had dreads. It was before I lost all the hair on top, and I had dreads like out to here, and it wasn't on purpose. It was just because I was living on the street. I had a house, but there was no drugs anywhere near it, so I lived in cars. Sometimes the cars weren't mine, and I slept under bridges. I slept in, when I had a little bit of money, I could get a hold of some royalties sometimes, but people were trying to keep my money away from me, to keep me from killing myself, and it didn't help. It just meant some days I didn't have anything to eat either,
Right.
So
drugs first.
It was my bottom was low. It was really low.
And are you ever mad at those people who are around you that didn't pull you out of it sooner?
No, because people did try, and I slipped the net on 3 interventions. I walked in, saw what it was, and turned around and walked out.
There's so many different ways that a person can get sober, and of course, sober from so many different things.
Yeah.
For you, what's the magic in the steps?
I don't think I could have done it without 12-step programs. I know I did try before, and nothing else worked. It's the only thing I've ever witnessed working, and so that's where my faith in it comes from. But it is faith.
Yes.
It's not a fact. I can't prove it to anybody, and that's what it is. So it is taking it upon yourself to just trust something, and a higher power, the existence of a higher power. You eventually have to get it. I think I did, and basically I did everything except for pray and meditate every day. I did everything else, and I wasn't doing that. And then, this is bizarre, I should have known something was coming. I went to Maui, and I met Ram Dass. It was a gift for my 60th birthday. I had this moment where I thought Ram Dass, had had a stroke, 20 years before he died, and he had trouble speaking. And I said, I just wondered when I met Ram Dass, like what John Henry, my son, who has autism and doesn't speak and hasn't spoken since he was 19 months old, what he would think about, Ram Dass and what Ram Dass would think about John Henry. So I brought him back the next Christmas, and I have on my puja also this photograph of John Henry and Ram Dass meeting, and it's electric. You can see this thing in both of their eyes, and I went back every year until RD passed away, which was in 2020, and it started with a bunch of stuff. I fell when I was fishing. I fished with a fly rod, and I fell in a river in New Zealand and was cussing because I was losing my core strength. And a friend of mine said, well, I practice yoga and it helps with that. So I started thinking about it then as a physical thing. And then I asked Ram Dass to recommend a yoga teacher. And between RD and the yoga teacher, they told me, this is prayer, this is meditation. And then I started practicing. And the way I practice it every day, but Saturday, and in Ashtanga practices, there's a Sabbath sort of on Saturdays. You don't practice on Saturday. I don't know what the origin of that tradition is, but it exists. And I started practicing it, and I looked up one day and I thought, I'm praying and meditating every day. And then my oldest son died of an overdose of fentanyl. And that was it. I don't think I would have gotten past it if I hadn't had that, by that time. That last piece of, I went to meetings, I sponsored people, I called my sponsor. My sponsees did more to save me during the roughest times of my recovery than my sponsors did, because I'd have somebody that's like, if I go out, it's going to be published somewhere.
Yeah.
And I have somebody that depends on me and looks up to me is going to sit and say, see, this doesn't work. And when people go out nowadays in my home group, they usually die because of fentanyl. We don't have many people come back if they go back out now.
Because you understand the disease of addiction so acutely, did it give you a different understanding of your son's passing?
I don't know. I don't know the answer to that. It's such a hard thing when you lose a kid. There's nothing that can prepare you for it. The people will say that the one thing you're not supposed to have to do is bury a child. That's kind of bullshit. Somebody does it every day. The only good I can find in it is I do say on stage every show I've done for the last couple of years. I usually do one of Justin's songs, and I tell people that fentanyl's out there. It's in everything. It's showing up in vapes. It's showing up in pot. It's, most of it is in perfectly legitimate looking prescription pills that look exactly like the real deal in this country. And it's killing people every day. And so the only good I can find in losing Justin is being able to say that, and maybe somebody lives that day. That's it.
100%.
And that's a 12-step kind of thing when you think about it.
What do you mean?
Just the idea that you keep it by giving it away.
Yes. Do you feel like you cheated death once or twice?
Do I feel what?
That you cheated death once or twice.
Oh, I cheated death a bunch of times between motorcycles and dope and some girls.
Yeah.
It's one of those things. I don't, I didn't, it's different. I feared death more than most people, and did really crazy stuff anyway. And I have a hard time understanding. It almost seems like a different person. Now, because of some stuff that I learned early on, I actually have a different attitude about death than my brothers and sisters do. When my father died was when I first started to understand that. We mourned, we did that differently, to the point where they got mad at me because I didn't do it the same way they did.
How did you handle your father's death?
Well, I just wasn't as, just didn't feel, my father had been in really bad health for a long time, and I felt like he was okay now. I mean, he didn't hurt anymore, and he didn't feel bad about himself because he couldn't walk any distance anymore. And so I just felt like he had been released, and they saw it as, we're taught to in this system, in Western spiritual practices, to make death, somebody else's death, about us.
Yeah.
And death's personal. It's about as personal as it gets. When you do it, you're going to do it alone. Whatever the fuck you think, you're gonna be alone. And I basically, I figure everybody's last words are probably, oh fuck, but I don't. I hope I can be more prepared. I'm going to be 70 my next birthday, and I've buried a lot of my friends the last few years. I just lost one of my people I've known for the longest in New York, and he was my boss at Sirius, Jeremy Tepper. had a massive heart attack and died just in June, and he was 60.
Oh.
So I've been losing friends for a long time. Most of my friends are 15 years older, 10 to 15 years older than me too. So those people have been going, and I'm down to Guy's gone, Towns is gone, Chris is gone now. Terry Allen's only one of those old original Texas guys that's still left, and he's 82. So,
do you feel sad about these losses, or do you feel like you're in a place of acceptance?
I feel sad about it, but there's no way not to accept it. It's not like that's the one thing that's gonna happen. There's not anything you can do about it. I don't fool myself into thinking that I don't fear it at all, but I do. I have spent most of what Ram Dass wrote. He was my guru, and most of what he wrote for most of his life was about death and preparing to die. His last book was called he wrote two that were kind of one right after the other. But one is like walking us home. It's the idea of like we're all just walking each other home, and that so that's what I do now. I don't I don't want to be terrified of it. I don't want to immerse myself in an environment where everybody won't talk about it. So that means it limits me a little bit, but it doesn't mean I don't see the people that think of it that way. I just don't. When it gets there and people start getting morbid about it, that's part of life.
Do you ever get visited by your departed?
By what?
By your dear departed. Do you ever get visited?
No, I don't. I mean, the closest I come to that is Justin was, 6'4" and got this peculiar angular build, and John Henry's taller than me now. And, he wakes every once in a while, I catch him out of the corner of my eye, and it's a little like a ghost in my house. And I'm not saying that doesn't exist. I've run into ghosts that I wasn't related to a few places in the world, and I don't know. But as far as somebody communicating with me, I hope. I think what I believe is that, and what you believe does color what you perceive.
Yes, sir.
What I believe, I like to believe, maybe it's for my own reasons, that when we go from here, we go back into the pool, and we're not consciously integrated, and we're supposed to not be consciously integrated. That material is supposed to get used for something else. And I think that's where the idea of karma was. We live in a society that's misused the word karma for generations now. We think karma is something that happens because something you did in this life, and that's not what it is.
Oh, good.
And it's like
thank God.
And that's not what it is. So yeah, thank God. But
do you feel like you've cheated death yourself for a purpose or by luck?
No, I think I was spared to do something, and I'm no longer arrogant enough to believe that I'm going to know what it is when I do it. So I just wake up every day and I suit up and I show up and try to do.
And try to do
what presents itself. Yeah.
You were talking about your younger son, John Henry. He has autism. How would you have been handling that if you were still using?
Oh God, I don't even like to think about that. I mean, it's not even. There's no way I would have handled it as well as I am now. I mean, it's not. It's hard what I'm doing. Being a single parent's hard enough. Single parent of a kid with autism. I mean, his mother loves him, but this shift right now, him being a boy, it's like there was no way for her to do it. He's way bigger than she is, and he's also. He does what all 14-year-old boys do without getting into details. And he
play a lot of video games and play other things?
He eats, and there's one other activity, and that's pretty much it.
So well, it sounds easy to me. You already know how to navigate it.
Well, it's not, it's one of those things. It's we're two guys, living in an apartment in New York City. And it's gross.
Yeah.
That's what it does do.
That sounds like it smells awful, Steve.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And speaking of John Henry, you're actually here today to promote an event that you do in his honor.
John Henry's Friends, and it's the 10th annual John Henry's Friends, which is like it's a benefit for the Keswell School, which is the only school of its kind that I know of in the world, and it's here in New York City. It's for people with autism between the ages of 3 and 22. It's 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 a 40-hour-a-week, round-the-year program. John Henry goes there 9 months of the year because he spends 3 months with his mom in the summer, and I get on a tour bus. I decided to move here to do music for theater as much as anything else. So 9 months of the year, I work on theater music and keep John Henry in that school. Then he goes to his mom in the summertime, and I tour and do my day job. But it's not... Keswick School is very special. It's what every kid in the country and in the world has a right to, but almost no one gets. It's a 40-hour program, and the ratio of teachers, not babysitters, teachers with degrees who are trained in teaching and providing therapy, which it is as much therapy as it is curriculum, or maybe even more so for some kids, certainly for John Henry. It's 40 hours a week, and the ratio of accredited teachers is 1 teacher to 1 student. That is what's recommended for children with autism. That's not a gold standard, but it's not funded anywhere. Here in New York City, there's a federal law that says that if your public school system can't provide what's recommended for your particular child's disability, then the school system has to supply you with the money to seek that out privately. That's the law of the land. But here in New York is one of the only places where there is money. They try not to fund it. They try not to let you have that, not to fund that level of service. They try not to let anyone go to the Keswick School. And you have to lawyer up, and you have to go to court. And that's what I've done. They've given up on trying to stop me and John Henry now. We've had 2 hearings in 10 years,
Can you believe this? You have to go to court to fight for your kids'
It's because
education.
they don't have the money most places. Here they don't have as much, but they've got more money here than any place else because we have a larger tax base than any place else in the country. So they can't say they don't have it. But we're still doing the same thing every other place else in the country is we're bleeding the money out of public schools and doing charter schools and everything else in the world. But they used to have really good. If you really wanted an education, when I was growing up in Texas, you could get a good education in public school, and you could in New York City, and you could in New Jersey. New Jersey's about the best public school system left in the country now, and New York's not bad if you get in the right school, and that's why people knock each other down trying to get their kids into the school in the district over because they know the difference between one school and another one. It's all about funding.
You're like the ultimate PTA dad.
Yeah, well, it's not that. It's just I have to do what I have to do to take care of my kid. I mean, I'm getting ready to, John Henry mother didn't shave him all summer because she didn't know how to do it. So he came back with this pretty good beard gun with a pretty good goatee. And I'm like, so Halloween's coming up. So he's going to be Shaggy and I'm going to be Scooby-Doo. So
yes.
We're kind of famous for that, for dressing up together for Halloween at the Keswick School. So, but we do. The concert started 10 years ago. Jackson Browne was our special guest that year. Jackson's back this year. Our format is, for the last several years, Bruce Springsteen did it 3 years ago. David Byrne's done it. Emmylou Harris, Lucinda Williams. It's going to be, this year we're doing, and I'm trying to keep it that way, a guitar pull format, which means it's all 4 artists. It's myself, Jackson Browne, Larry Campbell and Teresa Williams, who, Larry ran Levon Helm's band for years and was in Bob Dylan's band for years, and they're a great duo. And Larry provides us with a lot of instrumental power. And it's kind of just all the artists are on the stage at the same time, and one person starts singing a song and everybody accompanies each other, and we take turns going around. And so people get to see kind of what we do in our homes. Margaret Glaspie is our other guest this year, and my sister Stacy may pop up, for a song here.
Get out of here,
because she's back to touring again now that my mom's gone. She stayed home, took care of my mom for 10 years, and now she's back out on the road. So.
You Earls are a dedicated crew. You take care of your people.
Yeah, well, it's one of those things. It's just my family does that. Not a doubt about it.
It's a really important value, and I'm sure you're passing it along to your kid.
Well, I've got John Henry's got a brother named Ian, who's he's gonna someday he'll end up taking care of John Henry when Allison and I are gone, and we're trying to set up things to fund that because he's got 2 kids of his own, and I'm pretty certain that my grandchildren will, because Ian's gonna, John Henry's going to outlive Ian too. So, but I think my grandkids will pick it up because that's what they're being taught.
I love it. Listen, I am so grateful you made this time to come here and talk to us today. Thank you so much. Listen, I can't wait to come see your show as well. I think it's going to be fantastic.
It's going to be a lot of fun.
Make sure everybody checks it out. The details are at City Winery.
City Winery on the site, and also Keswell School. You can look both places, KESWELL, Keswell School, and also on SteveEarle.com.
SteveEarle.com. Thank you.
Thanks.